Out of the Loop. Posted by Golden Lilacs. What's up with people calling Billie Eilish an industry plant, and what does that even mean? The title speaks for itself. But I just don't understand what industry plant means. I also don't get why people think her fame was artificial, and why being an industry plant is different from just advertising a musician's music. Answer: I think it's a bit of our/Lou wrong iteration, since Billie Eilish is one of the first star singers of the new millennium, but there's a bit of truth to it. She has family members who have large connections to the music industry, so it's believed that they intentionally propelled her forward above other artists. Some people take this to mean that she doesn't deserve the praise she gets for her music. Her music also has a lot of moody and dark undertones. A lot of people see this as being edgy or like a 2000 to 2010 scene, emo phase thing that appeals to teenage girls and some guys. There's also criticism about it solely based on the fact that it's pop music, heavily produced sound, bass, repeating chorus, etc. However, she's talked about a lot of her music being related to how she's felt and the struggles she's had mentally. Whatever the reasons, her music is legitimately popular with young people. Some just doubt that all of her popularity is related to her talent, and not having contribution from her family ties as well. Edit, specifically about the industry plant thing. An industry plant is someone who is believed to have been artificially propelled to the top of the music industry by intentional advertising, paying radio stations, promoting the songs on streaming services, etc. It's believed that they are artificial because they may have not had a big following before and are promoted solely because they have a good image and can become part of the trend of music to gain profit for music industry labels if these labels fail to entice enough independent artists. It's more of a thing nowadays than before because we've entered an era of streaming where artists are more commonly independent of record labels and release music on streaming services, which get circulated through word of mouth on social media. Some more prominent artists, like Taylor Swift, have also been speaking out against record labels because these labels often force contracts to include the artist permanently selling away the rights to their music and master copies of these songs. Edit 2, some confusion being caused. I mean to say that Billie Eilish is one of the first hit stars who was born in the new millennium. That's not supposed to be me making a hot take that she's one of the only good artists who performs in the 2000s. This describes the majority of popular music though. Music labels and bigwigs decide who to push and advertise and pay for exposure, and it generally works in getting them popular. Weird that people would complain about it in this instance. So many times an artist just pops up and is all of a sudden releasing a debut album where they collaborated with all the big producers and songwriters and other artists, yet they are a nobody, yet the media have already been tailing them, making them famous. The music industry wants stars, and money essentially lets them create stars. Because of how easily manipulated their main markets are, they'll buy and like what the media tells them is cool. The definition of a plant is kinda blurry and more of a pejorative than anything, but it's assumed to be a thing because of a combination of an artist barely known, their appearance of being appealing to the trend of music for an audience, and how marketable they are for that. Keep in mind that, yes, this has been standard practice for record labels, but there's a growing movement of music fans who believe that self-styled artists are more credible than people who make it through sponsorship by the industry. As a 31-year-old who knew nothing about Billie Eilish until a week ago, listened to her song Bad Guy, and now I can't stop listening to the whole album. It has nothing to do with family connections or being young. I genuinely really like her music. Everyone else in her family are actors to varying degrees of success. I'm not sure about any attachment to the music industry. Her brother has a band that never really made it big. All her songs were written with her brother in her bedroom in their modest house that looks like her parents are hoarders. I personally think she has one of the better voices we've heard in a while. How people take that to mean she's an industry plant, I have no idea. I think people just want to hate on success. Having grown up in an entertainment industry town, I really don't understand when people criticize somebody for having grown up with the knowledge of show business. It doesn't make them an industry plant. It means that they probably spent their entire life around other entertainers and artists, and were able to learn a lot more about how the business and the art side work than other people were. Friend of mine is a drummer whose mom was an editor for a drumming magazine. He's not where he is today because she herself opened doors for him. He's where he is because growing up with the greatest drummers in the world walking in and out of your mom's home office helps you get really effing good at drums. Like, if you grow up around a welder and you happen to be really good at welding, nobody gives you a hard time. In entertainment, audiences are obsessed with talent and authenticity, as if it isn't a job that requires a huge amount of knowledge and practice and know-how. There are millions of talented people out there. There are far fewer who understand how to modulate their consonants to sound good on a really sensitive condenser microphone, and even fewer who know how to effectively work with a publicist and a distributor. Answer: she's from a family that's involved in the music industry, which I'm sure certainly helped. But I think it mainly comes from people no longer being in the know. Billie Eilish has exploded in mainstream popularity recently. There's billboards advertising in her all over the place, and she seems to be everywhere. To older people, this comes out of nowhere, and seems like the industry is advertising her for no reason, just to make her more popular artificially, though I'd argue any advertising is just that. That's kind of the point. But she's been popular among younger fans for a while. My sister is in high school now, but I remember her mentioning Billie Eilish years ago. When I say younger, I'm talking Gen Z. Millennials, myself included, have been the young generation for over a decade, and this is the first realization of how out of touch we are. We are now all adults. We were the ones in the know, following the newest trends before they even started. Not anymore. Billie Eilish is probably the first big musician that Gen Z can claim as their own. So I'll chalk this one up to millennials growing old and not coming to terms with it. Honestly, I've been watching her grow since Ocean Eyes came out. I was a fan right away, and loved every damn song she released. She may have been pushed forward a bit, but it's with good cause. Her fan base grew naturally, and her shows have just gotten bigger and bigger with legitimate fans. If you look up live footage, every single person in the audience is singing every word to every song. I experienced it last year at a festival and it's just unreal. Tens of thousands of kids singing in unison for a 16-year-old that never even had a full-length album out at the time. She's going to be a superstar. Answer: I had slight suspicions of this when I first started seeing her pop up everywhere. She just seemed way over-hyped and over-publicized. I even avoided her music and brand for a while because it seemed so suspect that she would shoot to fame that quickly from being a no-name and have such a solid brand style behind her already. But then I started listening to her music and learning more about her history, seeing interviews, and watching behind the scenes of her music videos. She definitely has something special and unique going on. Sure, her connections propelled her into the spotlight to make her a much bigger star than she probably would have mounted to if she grew up in a no-name podunk town. But she has a really interesting vibe, way of singing, and lyrical style, and creativity with her brand and videos. So I can see why people would say she's a plant due to her not so humble beginnings. But if that were the case, she wouldn't have any longevity. Just wondering how long she can maintain her originality until it gets watered down. Answer: because she is kinda a product like those K-pop bands. Her fame came fast because there's a whole industry behind her, and she was hyped on YouTube and marketed heavily for just a couple of songs. She didn't even had a whole album or anything, only clever and expensive marketing. I like her songs and the sound, but I'm well aware she was made, which is okay. What is not okay is the fact that she bashes other pop stars and musicians that gained fame the same way she did. There's a bit of hate too towards her because she acts a bit too arrogant, you know, and, as others have said, her family is in the business and lots of her acquaintances,